Louise O'Toole, thank you so much for joining me on Flop Culture. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to get into this because it's a show that I hadn't come to myself and I was waiting for the right opportunity. And what's a better opportunity than to talk about it on a podcast?
Yeah,
so please tell me, what did you pick?
So I picked How I Met Your Father.
Yes.
I have to keep reminding myself to say father because I keep automatically saying How I Met Your Mother. So obviously a spin-off of the original How I Met Your Mother. And that was released in 2022. So it wasn't the first attempted spin-off of it because they had tried to do one back at the back end of How I Met Your Mother in 2014 with Greta Gerwig.
Yes.
And that did not go well. That pilot flopped massively.
I was not aware of this pilot at all.
No,
and I've
me neither.
watched it for this. And maybe I have a controversial opinion on it, but I'm like, I think they should have made the Greta Gerwig version and not... And maybe not this. Sorry to my gal Hilary Duff. We'll get back to it though because I do really want to talk to it because like the pipeline to How I Met Your Mother spin off to directing Barbie and being like Queen of the World, obsessed with Greta Gerwig.
Exactly. That is like the best thing that ever happened for her, right?
Truly, what a segue. Can I ask you though about your relationship to the original show, How I Met Your Mother? This is going to get complicated, guys. Sorry. Because I feel like everyone has you either watched the show and you were obsessed with it, you went out with someone who was obsessed with the show, or you lived with someone who was obsessed with the show. In my case, I lived with someone. Hello, Jack Reardon. I love you. He was obsessed and we would kind of watch it in bits and bobs together. And I remember the journey to like the finale and discussions around the finale, which we'll obviously get into. Like, which category did you fall into in regards to that show?
So yeah, I have to confess, I haven't watched it in its entirety. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I dipped in and out of it. If it was on, I would watch it.
Okay.
But I never got hooked in that way.
Yeah.
That I was like, I need to know the outcome. And then I guess when the finale did come out, it was apparently a bit disappointing from what I've heard. So it didn't hook me then to go back and, watch it all the way through.
Okay.
So yeah, I had a weird way of getting into this one. It was really Hilary Duff that hooked me into this one.
That is really interesting. Okay, so you had like no connection to the Origin series.
Not really. Like I liked it. Anytime it was on, I would leave it on. It was I enjoyed it. Okay, but I wasn't like hooked on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you know how it did end.
I actually don't really.
Okay, I'll give a quick recap for anyone who is like not familiar. And again, if anyone's like watching now and doesn't want it to be spoiled, maybe just plug your ears for 2 seconds. The whole thing is, so like obviously it's charting Ned's journey to finding like his one true the mother. And it gets to the final season and we've met the mother and we're seeing like their relationship and how they end up getting married, whatever. And the final episode is basically their relationship. But then the mom gets sick, right? The mom gets sick, unfortunately, dies. Oh. And then Ned's like, oh, actually, I'm in love with Robin. So we'll go back to Robin. And to say... it's still regarded as, now I haven't come back to this, I might come back to it when I record the top and tail of this episode. I haven't come back to it since, but it's still regarded as one of the worst season finales ever because like this is 9 seasons of we're getting to the mom, and like towards the end as well, like critically people were getting really, really cross with it in terms of people felt like they were just like rehashing the same material and they couldn't get enough out of it. Like this was 9 seasons of, I don't know, a season finale is supposed to be like this delicious, glorious little payoff for presumably staying for, I don't know, like I think How I Met Your Mother ran for like over 200 episodes, right? Yeah. So the season finale is supposed to be like this delicious, oh, thank you, you made it this far. We're going to wrap up as many endings as possible, whatever, and we'll at least give you like that closure, whatever. And the thing with Ned and Robin was that or Ted and Robin, not Ned, fuck's sake. The thing with Ted and Robin was that like they had already had their goal with each other, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know, by the time now, as you said, this idea has been knocking around for a while to do it from the opposite gender's perspective of How I Met Your Dad. Were you familiar with that at all at the time of the Greta Gerwig thing, or did this come later?
No, yeah,
when
the Greta Gerwig thing I only just saw when I was looking into this. That is really interesting then about the ending. So I didn't actually know that bit about the Robin, because Robin also has a cameo in this that would indicate to me, I don't know, it didn't indicate that things were working out with Ted 10 years later. I kind of got the vibe
that they weren't together from this.
Yeah, exactly. No. So I was like, is this spoiler alert? It didn't even, like a happy ending, didn't have a happy ending. But the other thing then that's interesting, because like, I think the whole setup for How I Met Your Mother was that from the start that it's not her, right? Because the whole setup is leading to the When I Met Your Mother. Yeah. It's nearly When I Met Your Mother as opposed to How I Met Your Mother. And it's his journey to eventually meeting that person. And like one of the criticisms I did see on that is that, yeah, they wanted to like eventually when he does get to meet her, they want a developed relationship. So what they did with this one, and I think to their detriment, is in the pilot, they made it that she had met him that night in the first episode.
And they say
it became a whodunit of the 4 people. And I was like, I think that it kind of like, I see why they were doing it, because they were like, well, we wanted to develop the character that she ends up with at the end, or the father. But like, it also then just made it a whodunit of 4 people, but also one of them, Charlie, she was never going to be, I didn't think she was going to be with Charlie. They made 30 episodes of this. I don't even know if she ever had a conversation with them. But like, yeah, it became a whodunit of 3 people. Now, granted, they didn't, because if they had shown the kids, that was like what they did in How I Met Your Mother. They showed the kids. If they had shown the kids in this, it would have given it away straight away, right? Because they were racially 3 different people, potentially, that it was. I felt like if they were going to do that, they could have just thrown in an old speed dating or something that night, where she'd gone speed dating. We had like been introduced to maybe 10 other guys really quickly that probably weren't the guy. But at least it left the door open that person could come back in later and become, that you weren't as clear that it's like, it's definitely one of these people. You know, I just thought, I was like, it closed the door to anyone she was meeting then as it went on. Yeah. You knew it wasn't going to be that person. And I think that took away from it a little bit. Yeah. Anyway, I shouldn't be criticising it already.
No, let's. What is this about then? Who do we meet? You mentioned Hilary Duff. Who is she playing? And who are the kind of ensemble cast and the other friends that we meet?
Yeah. So Hilary Duff is like very much the main character. And in some ways, I think like, because they had this whole idea of a Lizzie McGuire reboot, right, that didn't take off.
R.I.P.
And in some ways, I think that they were trying to combine the two, because she's very much the main character. Whereas even though Ted is the main character, I think in How I Met Your Mother, I think the others are all very fully fleshed out people as well. It's not as clear. Like if you look at the opening credits of this, like they just draw a big circle around Hilary Duff and like they don't focus on any other actor in it, which I'm like, this is a bit harsh on the other actors. But so she's obviously the main character. And then obviously Kim Cattrall then is playing the older her. Yeah. Which I was like, the Sex and the City cameos in this are kind of like very interesting. But yeah, she... You know, the fact is they show her on screen. Yeah,
whereas they didn't with the dad in How I Met Your Mother. And it's a whole thing that, like, Kim Cattrall is, like, I think she's supposed to be 58, 68, maybe. She's in around that age, and she's on a video call with her son explaining how she met the dad. But we're with present day Sophie, is who Hilary Duff plays. And again, as you said, she's like hopeless romantic, has gone on loads of dates, but hasn't really had like a strong relationship, because as we learn, her mom was kind of a serial dater and it led to a lot of instability in her life, and it's kind of left her with like these weird trust issues.
So yeah, she's the main character. I think they do... Oh, it evolves over time that they set that up quite well. Because, I mean, initially when you're looking at it, you're like, this is Hilary Duff. Like, she's an absolute babe. Yeah. Are you telling me she's gone on 87? Because that's what they set it up with. She's gone on 87 first dates this year and not one of them stuck. You're like, but how?
Yeah, like, okay, so something's wrong with you. What is it?
Yeah. And they do. It evolves quite well. And I actually really like that bit in one of the early episodes of season 1 where she reveals she's never had a relationship. Like, she's never actually been in a relationship. And I was like, yeah, like that is a thing. And I don't think it's like talked about on TV that much that does happen. Like, she's still quite young, but like she's late 20s or whatever, but like that can be a thing. And if you obviously have some trauma behind you. So I think they set her up quite well for that. Yeah. Kim Cattrall though, like obviously she was like, hey, I'm not doing that just like that. And I'm here, but hey, I'm booked and busy. Look at me on the screen. That's what it felt a little bit like, you know.
I kind of struggled with this young Sophie to older Sophie. Like as much that it's like, yes, oh my God, slay, Kim Cattrall, yes, 2 blonde women, yes, of course. I can't help but feel like, so you're playing like a slightly maybe different version of Samantha.
Absolutely.
Like maybe a little bit more reserved, a little bit kookier. But like when you meet Sophie present day, it's like, I don't know what happens to you that you get this fucking...
They're completely different.
Weird and... you know what I mean? Yeah, they're completely
very different people. And I don't think... Like that, in the original series, I think what I heard was that Bob Saget was like watching how... whatever, it's Josh Radnor or whatever was playing Ted, and he would have... he tailored his whole voiceover to how that character was coming across in the episode. And vice versa. I think there was a bit of vice versa, but mostly on his side. And you can hear, like, he's softer, you know, like he is playing him as an older person. Whereas, Kim Cattrall is definitely just coming in going, I'm playing like, this is my version of what I think Hilary Duff is kind of like, but essentially as Samantha. And yeah, it's kind of like it's Lizzie McGuire turns into Samantha from Sex and the City in 20 years' time. And also somebody made the point that if this had run for like 9 seasons, like how would we have bought into the idea that a 40-year-old Hilary Duff was suddenly going to become, you know, physically Samantha?
Yes,
you know what I mean?
fair.
But I think we could suspend our disbelief for that because we're so happy to see Kim Cattrall booked and busy.
True.
But yeah, so there are obviously main character, but then you've got your kind of side character, your ensemble cast.
Yeah.
So one that was interesting is like Francia Risa or whatever plays the kind of best friend. I didn't really know much about her except for that she donated her kidney to Selena Gomez and there was a bit of beef about that.
Selena Gomez is like frenemy. She's been in lots of other bits and bobs. She's in one of the Bring It Ons. She was in
Grownish or something, one of those ones. Or...
that show with Shailene Woodley where Shailene Woodley gets pregnant, Secret Life of a Teenager, maybe.
Yeah, so she's been around, but I just hadn't really, all I knew of her was that I was like, her kidney is Selena Gomez's now. Yeah,
she's one. Yeah, I couldn't also help but have that thought while I was watching, and I was like, I doubt that's what she wants when people watch her.
No,
work,
but I think
like,
it was like the beef when Selena came out and said, "Oh, Taylor's my only friend in the business," and then she was like, "Oh, all right, thanks for that. Yeah, like I gave you a kidney," and you know, I can imagine it. And I think the way that came about, it does sound like it was a little bit dodgy that Selena found out that she was a match before she found out that she was a match, which is not how it's meant to be when you're donating an organ.
No.
So yes, her kidney is off on Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin and Martin Sheen, and there she is with Hilary Duff and Kim Cattrall, which is, you know, it's fine, but I can imagine you'd be a little bit bitter that all your other organs are not in as big a show as that. So that's the best friend, and then we've got the guy who plays Sid. I can't quite remember his name. He
plays Sid is Suraj Sharma. He was in like Life of Pi. Like is a very
and he was in this one. I just love my rom-coms. He was in this one, Wedding Season, relatively recently on Netflix.
Oh, there's a
film.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know there's also a show, Wedding Season, but he was in a film.
I think that's the one I'm thinking of because there's an Irish fella in that, isn't there?
I loved it.
Okay.
I have to say it was one of the best rom-coms I've seen in ages, and I really thought he was great in it. So when I saw him in this, I was like, I think this guy will be, you know, good, and I do think he's good in it. Then we've got Tien Tran, who is more a comedian, and I love her in this. She's probably my favourite. I know, I'm like controversial. I don't think other people do, but I was like, I like her. I think she does bring something to it. And then Chris Lowell, who was in Glow, which did you watch Glow?
Love of my life, no. But I was like, why? I just love white men with huge brown hair, to be honest. And I was just like,
floppy
sign me up,
bangs.
like, yeah, and just like, kind of curmudgeonly, but you know, like he's a big like he's just Ted again, like, you know what I mean?
He
I was
does.
like, right,
He's good. I think he's well cast.
I couldn't figure out where I knew him from, and then I was like, oh, it's Promising Young Woman, and then I was like, oh,
was he? That's not a good one to remember him from. Yeah,
okay, but
yeah, he was in this in Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. Yeah, and he played a completely like totally different character in that.
Yeah, I need to watch that.
He was great. It's great. That's another flop that you could do sometime because it unfortunately didn't get its final season. But yeah, and then the guy Charlie, who's kind of like meant to be essentially your Prince Harry, like
Tom Ainsley.
Yeah, they're like, you got Meghan Markle, like because he got, you know, excommunicated from his very wealthy family. That's kind of his whole personality, is that he was wealthy. Like, that's it. I don't know.
I don't think he's done much else since this, to be honest. Yeah, so it's like they're, as you said, this group of friends, all interconnected in some way, their own relationships. What works about this for you, and I suppose this particular group of friends, and what maybe doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, I think how they meet is kind of good. Like, she hops in the Uber. Like, that was a little bit like, yeah, this feels like that's something that could happen and that they'd become friends. I don't know. It felt somewhat like of today or different. The moving in together, those kind of bits. I think that they had the apartment and that they addressed that, yeah, we're getting a great deal on this apartment. You know, those kind of little things. They did try and ground it in a bit of reality. Mm-hmm. I don't know about the Sophie Francia Reza. I can't remember her name's backstory. Like Valentina, yeah. Their friendship is kind of, I don't know. I feel like, and maybe it does happen towards the end, like that there should be more fraughtness in that. Like, they're very tight, but I feel like they're very different, and that I feel there would have been more conflict in that relationship or something. Or maybe there could have been as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're, like, I guess it's like they do try and dial up the diversity a little bit, like compared to the original series as well.
Yeah, because that's a critique of all those ones at the time where it's like, they're all very white, male, whereas like this, and like obviously How I Met Your Mother is so fucking heteronormative, you know what I mean? Like, where it's like they're all straight. I'm pretty sure, like, all the main characters anyway, all straight, all white. Whereas this, you have, like, Tian Tran is playing a lesbian.
Yeah.
There's some kind of implications that some characters are bi and everything else. And obviously everyone's of different racial backgrounds.
And I think it works. It doesn't feel forced. Like it sometimes does in like how they're trying to do stuff in and just like that, where it feels like, oh, this character's just here to make it diverse. It feels... To me, it feels like a natural friend group, and that there's not like nobody's like, oh, I'm friends with this guy because he's an Indian guy. Like, you know what I mean? It's like we're friends because we met in college, and we seem like we're people who would be friends with each other, you know? So I think that works well. I think the brother-sister relationship between the Ellen character and Jesse, like they seem like total strangers.
It felt like they barely spoke in season 2. Like there was really any like they were like, okay, we've established that they're like brother sister. We don't need to spend any more time on this. Like I found that like really weird, really frustrating. Yeah. I'm like, just let Ellen be a friend then if she's not. You know what I mean? Like it was just. I don't know. That frustrated me a lot.
So, like, I know that they were trying to put in the whole, the parents divorced when they were young and one went with the mum and one went with the dad. So, like, they don't know each other or something very well. I was like, I think that was like an out for... This cast have not had a lot of time together because we're filming post-COVID and we're straight in there and these people don't know each other, so we can't make them play a real brother and sister, a brother and sister who actually know each other. But, like, over time... I feel they could have developed... Like, they obviously spent some time of their youth together. There is obviously some sibling... aspect to their relationship, or there should be, and I feel like they just missed the boat on that. Like that, everybody just seemed like friends, and like quite like some of them more tentative friends. Do you know what I mean? Like that, it was really your Valentina and Sophie are the only ones that are like the proper, besties, and I guess Sid and Jesse as well. But like otherwise, these are just two extra people we just added in who've moved to the city for fun. You know.
So I'm not sure, like, this is where we'll get to probably comparing the original How I Met Your Dad pilot and this show, because I know you were saying you kind of believed that. So the whole thing is Jesse is like a music teacher / an Uber driver, though I don't know if he really comes back to that bar when he teaches Sophie how to drive. Really, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's just thrown in at the start to be like, this is how they all became friends. He's reeling after he's been like, he was with a girl previously before they had a band together. He proposes, she turns down the proposal video goes viral because he gets turned down, and like he's kind of reeling after that, so he's not really doing the music thing anymore. Sophie's on the way to a date, and she's in the car with him. She gets the Uber, and he's also bringing Sid to propose to Hannah. Another issue, we'll get to that. And that's how they then become like friends, and they integrate the groups that way. That was a struggle. Like, I don't think this is a strong pilot, especially in comparison to the original pilot, which was shot like much closer to the time that How I Met Your Mother ended. So it was like 2013, and they were looking at, it was going to be called How I Met Your Dad. It was from the same creators, and I think a new edition. And as you said, the cast were Greta Gerwig, Drew Tarver, Nicholas D'Agosto, Krista Rodriguez, and Andrew Santino. And then there was a couple of other people as well. And it was Meg Ryan was actually voicing future Sally, who Greta Gerwig was playing, the lead character Sally. And the framing device was that Sally was writing a letter to her daughter Cricket explaining how she met the dad. So you don't actually see, you just hear Meg Ryan's voice, you don't see Meg Ryan.
No,
but the whole thing is that with Sally's character, it's Sally, her brother, and her brother's partner who are going through a surrogacy journey. Sally's best friend, and one of Sally's friends that she works with, they end up going on a date after Sally's in the midst of divorce or starts to divorce someone. So that, at least at that point, it's like they kind of all know each other, bar Frank is an outlier from being Sally's friend from
But it's all hinging around her, right, as well. And it's strong ties and relationships that you... believe then that they will go on to still be friends in 8 years' time. Yeah, this is like, it's very... Now, I feel like they could have... I don't know about this, but I felt like, could they have used the fact that it was post-COVID to drive this story on a little bit? Firstly, I think it would have helped with Sophie to believe, because she kind of comes in like this, oh my God, I'm desperate to find the partner or whatever. This, like, why now?
Yeah.
You know? And I think that could have been a good why now, because I've been locked up for 2 years and not really able to date properly or whatever, that could be part of it, or I was isolating with my mom or whatever. And then even for them, like, they're moving to the city, and like that they it's harder to meet people now because it's in a post-COVID world. Whatever. I feel like they could have built a world a little bit on that to like push them closer together, if you get me. Or we had moved in together at the end of the pandemic and that's why we're close. Or Valentina and your man Charlie, like I feel like they could have just gotten married. I feel like they could have come into the episode wed. I feel that could have helped.
Wedding, yeah.
That they could have got married over there. Maybe she'd isolated. She'd been stuck in England for a year and they got married and now she brings them back. Or so, you know, something that would have just tied them together, knitted them closer. Because yeah, exactly. Why would Charlie still just be hanging around with them when he breaks up with Valentina? Why would Ellen be tied to this group that her brother's friends with when she doesn't even get on with her brother? She doesn't know him that well. You know, you'd be like, oh, whatever, I'll just go and make my own friends.
I wonder if it's just because they didn't want to age it, but then in some other ways, like it's so... Like, it's really difficult, and I'm not sitting here saying this because, like, I have never written a TV show, and I probably never will, right? And I don't doubt that it's very hard. But the issue is, and, like, in some ways, it's like, oh, yeah, we've so much more to grapple with because dating has completely changed. How we view love has completely changed. We've more room to kind of explore things like marriage, divorce, like LGBTQ plus relationships, whatever. We've more kind of meat to chew on. But then at the same time, you're kind of throwing things in like technology, and that never translates well on screen. And I don't like the social media of it all. Like it just, they're desperate to be like, we know what TikTok is, we know what Instagram is, we know what like, oh my God, you sent the wrong DM to the wrong person. Haven't we all been there, girls? And we have, but like for some reason, the minute I see that on screen, I'm like, fuck off. Like, do you know what I mean? And so I'm like, but I don't know why they were so kind of desperate to do that and not do the post.
Yeah, exactly.
COVID thing,
it's like
I
we
don't
know when
know.
it's set. You're making it clear they're in an Uber, like they're online, they're on Tinder, like that. They're really cringily trying to use the words of the moment, and it really doesn't work. Like as bad as and just like that is for they're trying to be woke and like of the moment. It's kind of works there because they're in their 50s and they're trying too hard. These are 30-year-olds. Like they shouldn't be so awkward about using the current lingo, but they really are. And I don't know, it just, so they really do, they address that it's set in the moment, they just ignore that it's a post-COVID world. And then even in terms of the setting and stuff and what they're doing and the day-to-day, it doesn't feel current. Like it still feels like it could be friends, you know? Like it's that they're doing this, they're sitting around in a bar. A lot of it, I was like, oh, that doesn't feel now. That doesn't feel like what a 30-year-old would be doing right now.
And I think, again, it's probably too close to the original because obviously, like, How I Met Your Mother, it's like they're in the bar every night of the evening, like recounting Ted's shit date number 805, you know what I mean? Or, like, they're all just there kind of having chat. It's too, like, central perky. And then I know, again, it's like, where else do you set it if it's not a bar or a cafe? Like, I do get it. But then you are setting yourself up for the inevitable comparison to the original show and the original group, which in fairness, I do think they had a better stab at it with this because there are extra characters as well. But I think that's also to its detriment. Like I think Charlie should be dead. I thought it would get better and it actually just didn't, which is a shame because Tom Ainsley is one of the hottest people I've ever seen.
He's very attractive.
He's very attractive. I get the whole thing of it's like he's rich and now he's with all his poor American friends, lol, and he's like adjusting to being a poor person, I guess. But I get that it's also because we're of a certain time and we don't pick on certain nationalities anymore because, quite frankly, that was just racism in the past. Yeah. And usually, I'm all for let's take the piss out of the Brits, girls. But it's bad when you know you're coming to the end of a show and you're like, I kind of feel sorry for this character because it's like you just have nothing.
They're giving him nothing
to work with here. Like it's, and I hate the possibility that he's the father. Like I don't buy that for one fucking second, as you said yourself, because they barely spent.
They don't have a conversation.
Any time together across the 2 seasons, across the 30 episodes.
Yeah. No, they do nothing with him. Like they're like. Even the bit where, like, he wants to do the friends soccer day. I'm like, even that, I'm like, did you look at it? Did you research this at all? Like, that would definitely have been rugby, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? I was like, he's meant to be, like, upper echelon. You know, it would have been a cricket match or a rugby match. I just didn't buy.
He literally talked about polo earlier on in the season.
Yeah, anything. And that would be more ridiculous and niche or something. They could have just gone somewhere. Like, they just didn't take it far enough. Or even when, like, he's like, oh, I want to be a therapist, but, like, without training. Like, even not getting that you have to train to be a doctor or a therapist. I'm like, come on now. this dude had money. He definitely went to like, you know, Eton or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But like they just go, I just couldn't even, I didn't see it coming because they just said, oh, so obviously what's a therapist who doesn't have any training? And it was like a bar person. So they were like, oh, we'll put you in the bar. I was like, I didn't even see that coming because my automatic gag for that was like, oh, an Instagram life coach. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what and also look at him. He would make a great Instagram life coach. You know what I mean? Go on, if you have these abs naturally, that's fine. But you go and tell everyone that it's because of what you're doing in your day-to-day life and you're getting up at 6 a.m. and whatever. And I was like, that for me, I was like, why didn't they, if they're going to do it current, why didn't they go down some absolute wacko route? Instead, they were like, it was just a means to get Charlie working in the bar, so he's there all the time. And I was like, this is just boring. And even the bar, like the bar itself, I'm like, this is not what somebody gives up medicine to set up this bar. This is not the bar.
It's very bizarre.
Yeah, I'm like, it's going to be a stunning cocktail bar that you're, you know, if that's your dream, that's what it's going to be, something amazing.
Yeah.
It's not going to be this like absolute basic bar that you don't really even see that many of them in New York. Like they're not going to survive, you know? I was like, I felt like, I don't know. I was like, I would have liked to see him like doing something totally wacko, like that was more, not wacko, but like more, you know, like doing something that's on trend, like this is a chai bar or something, and then like that, a chai and samosa bar or something like that. I feel New Yorkers would be like, oh yeah, that's kind of different. We'll flock there, and then maybe it would be that it changed, like that as soon as he started making money from that, he'd be like, oh no, now I want to do.
But he's constantly has different jobs, yeah, just
something that's like really trying to keep up with the trend and like do the trendiest thing in New York, as opposed to this crappy bar that just serves beer and
I think he was too close to the Barney character as well.
Okay.
I think they were doing like trying to be a little, you know, like British himbo, a little bit silly, but like still obviously like really sexy. So like getting with people, but like you can't do, now again, bear in mind, I haven't fully rewatched How I Met Your Mother. There's obviously, and they do kind of joke about it later on in season 2 where Sophie meets Barney, that like Barney's actually like maybe, if you look too closely at Barney, like if you were to look too closely at the son, Barney, problematic character. You know what I mean? Always shagging people, the way he talks about women, not great. Fundamentally, not great. But in that, like, he is a legendary, sorry, this is a fucking, I actually wasn't doing this deliberately, but like, he's a legendary character, no pun intended. Yeah. And he is so solidified in How I Met Your Mother lore and like pop culture of that time, that it's like, you cannot do that again. Don't try. I don't think they do it with the rest of the other characters, with the exception of maybe Sophie and Jesse. But I do think they're stronger actors that they can get away with it.
Yeah.
Respectfully to poor old Tom Ainsley, I also just don't know. And I do also think he didn't have a lot of material to go with, so I will give him that to his credit. But he doesn't bring the performance that's needed to be the kooky.
No, he's definitely.
I'm a Brit and I was the Prince Harry, as you'd say yourself, you know?
Yeah, he just doesn't have that, like. Yeah, Barney kind of has, I didn't watch the whole series, but he has this like awareness of his lack of self-awareness or something, or like he has awareness of his own problems.
He's kind of semi-in on the joke at some point.
Yeah, exactly. He's okay with being the person who says the wrong thing.
Yeah.
He's not doing it on purpose either, but he's okay. He's like, that's me. And he's very like just self-accepting, whereas I think that Charlie character, he's too self-conscious of himself to ever be that person. Yeah, he was never. Yeah, I didn't even think that they were, but that makes sense that they were trying to make him the guy who, the sexy character or whatever, who gets with everybody, which that's fine. Looks like, it works, but it doesn't personality-wise.
Yeah, that makes sense. Him getting with everyone, obviously, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's just the other, I think.
The sleazier aspect of
something
him.
Isn't, the Venn diagrams aren't Venn diagramming, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, what about Sid then? Because Sid is, and I found this really interesting as I was logging this in, serialized for, it's like letterbox for TV, if anyone wants to follow me there, it's just Fionnuala J. And like looking at the reviews as the season was going on and the show was going on, there are a lot of like Sophie Sid truthers that like believe that Sid is the father and that they should actually be together. What do you make of Sid as a character and that theory?
So Sid as a character, I like him as a character generally. I think he tracks as that. I don't like the bar itself that he goes for, but him being kind of the high achiever, the dropping it. It's actually kind of a little bit not similar, but it tracks with his character actually in the wedding season as well, is a little bit similar. I think he works. I think the relationship with Hannah works real well. Like the long distance, not works real well, sorry, but as in it's a good foil for a storyline, I think. Yeah. The long distance thing and then whatever happens in season 2 between them. Yeah, like I don't totally know that I like what they did with that. But I think that they were already at the point that they knew that they weren't going to get a long run of the series.
I do wonder because like it's obviously introduced and it's like, okay, again, interesting. You're exploring something that it's like, it's long-term relationships. You were both on similar career paths. You've sacked that in to do something else. And like, that's a point of conflict. They get past it.
Yeah.
The wedding planning thing, it's a point of conflict. They get past it. But because they're long distance, you never get to spend enough time with the Hannah character.
No, that's
that it's
true,
like,
yeah.
I know Sid and I like Sid and I like he's really personable and like level-headed and he's very the Marshall character but not as dumb in a way, like a little goofy but not dumb.
Yes.
Whereas like Hannah, you don't get the believable thing that it's like with Marshall and Lily where it's like, or you're meant to be together. Like the further it was going on, I was like, fuck, when does this? And it's really frustrating. Like that is one thing where it was like, we get to the end of season 2 and like their future is completely up in the air despite the fact that they're now married. And it's like, that would have been interesting to explore in season 3, like the divorce and like whether him and Sophie do get together and like how that affects his relationship with Jessie. It's very frustrating.
So allegedly, so the writers actually for this are the This Is Us writers.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Which I think you know in season 1 because you're like, yeah, these guys don't know how to write a sitcom. It's too sweet and sickly and whatever. Like they needed someone to come in and punch up that script in season 1. Like
just a little bit grittier. Just a teensy bit grittier.
It's too sweet and saccharine or whatever. But yeah, sorry, where was I going with that? Apparently one of the writers, a writer, probably not one of the This Is Us writers, to be fair, maybe someone who came in season 2 did reveal, I think they might be a comedian, and revealed that Sid was meant to be the father. Apparently. That's just that. Allegedly.
No, sorry.
So you don't like it?
I'm a Sophie Jessie truther till I die, I think. And
like, but it would be so boring if it was him because they're together from the beginning.
I know,
right? Or
but like
there's chemistry there.
I feel like they would have done like just a Robin on it again where it was like, I don't know.
I think you might be right.
This fella's your dad and I'll always love him, but actually I don't know.
I got back together with Jessie.
Yeah, something, or I got back to vice versa.
And he treats the child like it's his own because it was his best friend. Yeah, or something. I don't know.
Something like that maybe.
Nice,
I don't know.
Happy families. Yeah, I don't know.
Would you have bought them as a couple?
I when I heard that and I rewatched it actually, I was like it would have to evolve. It would definitely have to evolve. But then I also would buy Rachel and Joey as a couple and friends. So maybe that's why it was from that angle that I was like, I like the idea of them never seeing each other in that way, but always getting on and then eventually coming to a point where they go,
burn
actually,
kind of a thing. Yeah.
Do you know what? Like, especially because I do feel Sophie needed to evolve in her, like that was going to be the interesting bit about it. It was her evolving in her taste and trying to understand what she actually was looking for because I think she didn't have a clue.
Yeah, because again, to needlessly compare to How I Met Your Mother, the thing with like Ted was that he was you could tell he was like desperate and really believed in true love, and I mean that as affectionately as possible. Yeah. Whereas like with Sophie, I kind of don't know what and I know they do kind of illustrate that where it's like she's faced with like the prospect of like a good love and a good relationship and she runs every single time.
Yeah.
But then at the same time I was like,
but she's still out there saying that, which I know is the typical thing when you're like avoidant attached or anxious attached or whatever. Like it is the thing, but it eventually would get really tiresome, right? Like you're like when she ran for Jessie that time, I was like although I could believe it, but she couldn't keep doing it. You'd be like, all right, you got to go to therapy and learn, like, at some point that this is a pattern. Surely you're seeing the pattern after 87 dates and, you know, maybe, whereas, and I think
you're
also
the problem, Sophie.
Yeah, Sophie is definitely the problem, like, and it's good because they do, like, at least they give her a bit of backstory to be the problem, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I know, I don't know. It's hard when it's Hilary Duff. That's what I found. That I was like, but she's such a babe. Like, all these people, like, and then some of the people she picks, I'm like, oh my God. But in a way, that makes it a good story. But
yeah. Like the Drew of it all, the Josh Peck of it all.
It was so bad.
Hell. Now, I will say, I kind of like how his character unravels.
Yes.
As the season goes on, from like the tight knit, like buttoned up, like really serious, like just to see him absolutely spiral.
Yeah. When he gets the spray tan, I'm like, it's very like Ross and Friends. But also, he actually does, he does better with that than he does with the actual trying to seduce Sophie character.
But this is the thing, I'm like, you're better kind of goofy, funny.
Yeah, he could bring something to it, but not in the way that they brought him in the first place.
Yeah.
And then, when they brought in Leighton Meester, actually, so...
Oh, I screamed.
Yeah.
Leighton Meester supremacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh. So, I love her. I absolutely love her. And I don't think... I watched Gossip Girl the first time, and then I rewatched it. Like, initially watching Gossip Girl, you're all like, Blake Lively, she's amazing, blah, blah, blah. Look at her clothes. And then I rewatched it, and I was like, oh my God, that entire show hung on Leighton Meester's acting.
truly.
She is phenomenal. And she comes into this and she's phenomenal. Like, she's so good. I was like, oh, I think we need you all the time.
She's acting rings around them in some area, and it's like, oh.
She can be, like, it's that thing of how she can be so charming and a bitch at the same time. And that brings, like, humour into those type of characters that I don't think the others can do in the same way. And it just made me go, should she be Sophie? Like, should she have been the main character? You know, but I don't know. She's not really, like, I feel like is she out there trying to get that sort of level of work at the minute? You know, because I feel like she could be if she wanted to be. She's so good. Or is she? I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to know.
Maybe she doesn't want to do another, like, sitcom thing.
Yeah, or a long running thing, because, you know, her and Adam Brody are the kids and they're probably just working a bit each or whatever. So yeah, but I felt like, she came in and I was like, yeah, this is the level of acting we need. We need a couple more her level, or her specifically in it. Yeah.
Especially as a musician, because she's Meredith. She's Jesse's ex that, like, declines the proposal and then ends up coming back and, like, wants to get back together with him, but it's not actually because of, like, any real relationship they want. It's kind of to further her career and stuff like that. And as you said, she plays the bitch so well, but, like, she's a great singer as well. And even that J Street song, as far as fake songs go for TV shows,
it was great.
Banger.
Yeah, it
banger.
Was like, I was like, oh, this is a fake Cornelia Street or whatever. That's why I kept. I was like, this is Taylor Swift level. She would blow up. Like, I think she's really good, and she's also very charming. Like, when she comes back in, straight away she sees Sid hates her because, like, he broke his best friend's heart, and she's straight away, your skin's amazing. Like, and you can buy that she's so charming and sweet that he's like, and then he goes, no, and I'm like, she can play that, like, that she can be an absolute bitch, or you know that she has ulterior motives, but she's so nice and charming and beautiful and talented that you still do want to be her friend, or like the way Sophie wants to impress her. Like, yeah, I believe that you would want to. And yeah, so I really like her as a character in this. And I felt when she was gone then, I missed her, you know? Yeah. I was like, oh, I kind of want her back, even though it doesn't make sense for the plot of the show. But I was like, you know, I think she would have been a good staple character in it. Yeah. Yeah.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else from this group you would have, like, did anyone else not work for you in the way that Charlie and... I will, like, the thing with Ellen is, I think Ellen would have worked if Charlie hadn't been there, but I think they were trying to do...
Too much.
Two goofs, and I'm like, we need to minimise the goof here,
Yeah, so I think what worked for me is that I think she did well playing the goof. Maybe I might be alone in that, because I do know other people didn't like her in it, but I thought her physical comedy and stuff, she did... To me, she had a better... like, range than he did.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
And I was like, maybe it's like coming from a comedian background, and I'm like, yeah, cast more comedians as in sitcoms, please, come on. Because I think she did a good job with it. I think she just, like, the way she delivered lines sometimes, like, she was probably the only one that consistently maybe laugh a little bit through the show. Like, the others, you'd get a laugh every now and then if they had a good line, but, like, she would deliver things in a way that I thought got a laugh. And I believed her as a goof.
When she did there's a scenario where it's her and Jessie asks her to keep a secret, and she's on about, and she's like, oh no, I'm really good with sequins, and she has the sequin book with her face, and she keeps, like, changing for her expression. I was like, that's good. That's good. But again, I just feel like that... and again, because it only got 2 seasons, there's obviously this probably would have been explored, but, like, the whole divorce thing and the fact she'd left behind a wife and, like, a farm kind of randomly, but then she gets to the city and she can't get a job, and then she's, like, randomly with that girl who she pretended, you know, she was
best friends with her grandmother.
She was best friends with her granny, and, like,
she wanted a few slices of tomatoes. Like, what?
Like, why did we send her back to her? Surely you could have found another lesbian, you know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty... where is it supposed to be set again? New York?
It's New York, yeah.
New York's full of lesbians. Find another lesbian, like.
Yeah, they really, like...
That's what Ellen deserves.
It's just that thing of, we don't want to cast another actor, and we don't want to... You know what I mean? We don't want to introduce them to a new character again. But you're like, I think we're okay with that in this. We know the premise of the show. Yeah. That there are going to be people coming in. And if you get strong enough actors, the likes of Leighton Meester, if you're thinking like Paul Rudd coming into Friends, like, no one had any problem with that, because they're such a good... If you get a good actor who... And you have it written as a good character, I think, as well, who's a good foil to the other person. And I think they could have done something interesting with that. You know, I think they could have written a more fully fleshed lesbian character that we would have believed she would have fallen for, and maybe goes for somebody fresh out of divorces all the time, or, you know, so they maybe are problematic too, so they're not going to stay in it that long, but could have been like somebody that just brought something out in Ellen. Whereas they're kind of like, they just feel like they wrote 2 characters. I feel like they didn't know what they were doing with the character. You know, they were just like, we'll just write this girl who lives across the hall and is quite like, she's fine, but there's nothing that interesting about her, you know? And they were like, yeah, that's grand. Then she's paired off. It was like, it felt lazy to me. Yeah. But yeah, Ellen, I think I have a warmness for Ellen in general because she works in produce. She works, and I loved that as a job. I was just like, yeah, somebody has a real job. That is actually, somebody is a buyer for Trader Joe's. Somebody sits there and decides what lettuces they're going to buy. And I love that somebody in a TV show has that job for a change and is also kind of excited about it. Like, she's a total goof and nerd. So yeah, I think I warmed to her because of that, because I was like, yeah, buying lettuces is fun.
Yeah. They shouldn't have made Sophie a photographer. And I say that respectfully to photographers and creatives everywhere, but it's just like, it
was a boring kind of, I liked the creative, I liked the clash. So in like early on, she has this relationship with Josh Peck's character, who's like a principal or whatever in a school, has a very stable job, and they end up in a conflict because he starts saying, oh, Jesse should just take this, you know, full-time job that he's offered.
That episode is really good because it's
really
her and
good.
Jesse being like, we're fucking broke, suffering artists, like, is this the way we're going to live forever? But as all of the artists in here sit in the room and cry ourselves to sleep. And as you said, she has this conflict with Josh Peck's character because he has a really good job and he's like, we need to give up the pipe. That's a good
It's really good, and
episode.
It's early enough on in the relationship, and he doesn't want to, he's not addressing it to Sophie. He's just talking about Jesse. So who's a person he's friends with or works with or whatever. So he's not addressing it to Sophie. He's not directly saying to her, you should give up the pipe dream.
Yeah.
But also she's at a really, like, she's having a bad moment as an artist, as we all do, where you're going through, oh, I don't know, you know, you're questioning your own path and if it's ever going to work out for you. So it hits at a really good time that even him just having that idea that artists should just give up the pipe, and any artist should give up this pipe dream and just get a stable job, it really hits her, and you can see that, and like, that's a really good conflict that, again, I don't think is probably explored, I'm sure, in some other shows and other films or whatever, but I haven't seen it on a mainstream sitcom in that sort of way. And like, so they had some nuggets in there. They did really well with like conflict, but it's just, they didn't keep it up through all the episodes or all the relationships, I think. Yeah.
We are going to take a very quick break. We'll be right back after this. Okay, the Hilary Duff of it all and the Lizzie McGuire of it all. You mentioned that, like, for anyone that's not familiar, Lizzie McGuire, a Disney Channel show that ran in the early aughts that kind of basically exploded Hilary Duff's career. She's normal girl in high school, has two friends, kind of nothing else happens bar the movie, and she goes to Rome and she becomes an international pop star, right? I don't need to fill in the blanks in between because, like, it's all very
Disney.
It's all very Disney. It became this huge show for them that they actually ended up having like no budget for it, because the cartoon version of her, I think, was supposed to be in it more, I learned recently, but they didn't have the budget for the animation, whatever. Wow. And I think people also think it ran for longer than it did. I think it's only two seasons, like How I Met Your Mother, crazy. Yeah. But there was all this talk pre-pandemic, I think, about a Lizzie McGuire reboot. So it was going to be Disney Plus, and they were bringing the original gang back together. So Lizzie, the actor that played Gordo, and it was following Lizzie into adult life. And you've all these photos released from set, like it was pretty much happening, right? And then it's put on like indefinite hiatus because of creative differences. Hilary Duff is absolutely devastated because she's like, I just wanted Lizzie to shag, and you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but she's like, I wanted Lizzie to shag, we couldn't make it work, whatever. Yeah. So it's interesting then in this, like the way you kind of made reference to the fact that they kind of, I don't think they implicitly tried to make this the Lizzie McGuire reboot, but there is a really funny nod to it in an episode in the second season, I'm pretty sure it is, where they're all recounting their worst Valentine's Day experiences, which again is very How I Met Your Mother. We're all sitting, and these are all flashbacks, whatever, and we're telling stories, whatever. And she's talking about her previous worst Valentine's Day ever, and there's a clip from the Lizzie McGuire show, which then fans look at that and they're like, oh my God, this is canon, whatever. So How I Met Your Father is the Lizzie McGuire like reboot, whatever. And it's not like, it's obviously not, because the characters are all completely different, whatever. But one of the writers for the Lizzie McGuire reboot came out then and is like, has kind of revealed details for, I think they'd written essentially the first two episodes, where it's like Lizzie and Gordo don't get back together. They're still friends. Gordo's engaged to someone else, I think as a kid, with someone. And Lizzie was engaged but ended up splitting up with him because he He was cheating on her, so then she moves back home to her hometown, and obviously she's hanging out with Gordo again, whatever, but she ends up shagging sexy hot Ethan, hello. And one of the things was that the cartoon has like a to-do list and like crosses like Ethan off the to-do list, whatever. So the writer reckons that's where Disney were like, absolutely not. We cannot be seen to be putting this forward as the thing. But like, it's like,
wow.
Sorry, but this is to go to my point that like, maybe this is another reason why it didn't take off was that because it was just, the premise was kind of similar enough to the Lizzie McGuire adult reboot that it was just too much. And then I suppose it's too close to How I Met Your Mother in timing and in terms of content. I don't know, like what would have to have changed for you and I suppose for a wider audience, do you think, for this to have been like a runaway success in the way How I Met Your Mother was?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they had the bones really, because like, yeah, I say that. Sorry, I was going to say because it wasn't really a unique idea, but actually, when How I Met Your Mother came out, that was criticised in its first season for not being unique either, because it was kind of seen as a rip-off of Friends somewhat. So yeah, but they were given the time. It was a different time. Like they were given the time to like evolve those characters and evolve it to be its own thing, where they kind of had the flashbacks and the group sitting around together reminiscing. Obviously, this was trying to do a bit of that. I think it needed. I don't know exactly what it is. I haven't written a TV show either, but like, you know, it needed to be its own thing. I think more so. So it needed a bit of time to figure out what it was. I don't know if I did see the criticism of the laugh track sitcom. Like it is kind of out now, you know.
That was my next question. Is the sitcom dead?
Oh, I hope not. Like I love a sitcom, but yeah, that's how I ended up getting into this. Was that I was like, I was dying for I needed a sitcom. I was like grieving my dad, and I was like, okay, I hadn't actually ever watched Seinfeld. I watched it all the way through the end of last year, and then I was like, I need something else that's like light, and I get to know these characters. And that's why, like, I was like, okay, I know there's only 2 seasons of this, but like, at least I know Hilary Duff. I know I like her. I've seen Chris Lowell and things. I like him, so grand. We need them. Like, we need sitcoms. But I know it is hard to know, like, how, because there wasn't really anything else being made like this at the time. Like, 2022. I know it's post COVID and stuff as well, so it was only starting to get back up and running. But I don't know what else is out there, like, because we're looking at like the comedy section of your Golden Globes or whatever is, I don't even, Abbott Elementary is there. Like,
Abbott Elementary, I was going to say, and I will get to it eventually. I haven't watched it. Everyone says it's brilliant. No, but I will say Abbott Elementary is different in terms of style for anyone that hasn't watched it. It's set in like an elementary school, obviously, but it's more Office-esque, I would say, than like this, where it's like it's multicam, you have a laugh track. That like they're kind of different beasts.
Looking at the camera, that kind of biz,
So then I wonder, is it like a streaming network television thing? Because obviously that's the issue as well, is that like whatever, like How I Met Your Mother was a network TV show, like we got it here on fucking E4, like, every Friday or whatever it was. The new episode was on at 7:30, whatever. Whereas this was... It was Hulu in the States, but it's Disney Plus over here.
It is,
so you're getting all, like, I'm pretty sure we got all the episodes at once. Maybe we didn't.
Or 2 drops or whatever. Maybe. Yeah, I know. That's it. And that's what I'm looking for. Because how I'm not a Hilary Duff from the Lizzie McGuire days. What happened was I ended up watching this show Younger that Darren Star had produced. She wasn't even the main character in that. She was kind of the second. She was the friend in it. And that ended up running for 7 seasons. And what I loved the show anyway in the premise, but what I loved about it is that it dropped every week. And I was like trying to find it online to get it over here every week. But like, I loved the idea of having a 30-minute episode every week of something I enjoyed, of characters I liked, and I would just come home and it could be like after a gig, after the pub, like whatever. It's only half an hour, but I know it's going to be satisfying. And yeah, I don't know if you watch these, I wonder if you watched it like that. I don't know how satisfying each of these episodes would be. Like some of them would have worked, but some of them weren't good enough to stand on their own. And I think that whole way of projecting a show, like the weekly drop, like I do think we want that. Like I think there's a place for both. I think we want our stuff to binge, and we want our shows to just like spend a weekend watching it, but we also do want the weekly drop thing. And I think it is, you can see it with Succession, you can see it with The Bear. I think The Bear drops it, I don't know actually, because I ended up binging that, but I think it does drop, or it drops in parts. The Bear drops all at once,
I think. But then the funny thing is that like just was when you mentioned like the Golden Globes and what's up for comedy and stuff, like The Bear's up for comedy, and I'm like, bitch, it is funny, but like manically depressing as well. You know what I mean?
It is. It's up and down. I can definitely argue that it's comedy, but I could also argue that Succession was a comedy. Like,
also true. Yeah, fair.
Like, I could have, because I have never laughed as hard as I've laughed at the lines when they had a good line.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that but sitcom is obviously supposed to be like, I don't think they have the laugh per minute in this that they should have. And yeah, I don't know. I think if you look at the individual episodes, I just don't think they're individually satisfying enough to drop that way.
No.
Whereas probably How I Met Your Mother, the original, or Friends or whatever, like some episodes of Friends are maybe filler episodes, but like they are filler episodes. We know they are, but like the characters are so good and so strong and the acting is so good that they were still, you were happy to watch it. You know what I mean? You sit down with a cup of tea or whatever and you'd watch it when it dropped. Yeah, I think we are missing the weekly drop, but I don't know if this would have been strong enough for that. And I think that's probably ultimately why it didn't go the distance. Like,
yeah, because it's just like, and again, that's a writing thing as well, where it's like, obviously you have to write with a streamer in mind, that it's like, oh, this is going to be binged as opposed to being watched weekly. But then that does make it different. Like, I found it to be a perfect binge, because obviously I watched for this episode. I wasn't watching week to week, and I was like, as you said, I think I would have been left very, like, if I had watched that pilot alone,
would you have come back to it?
I don't think I would have come back to it.
Yeah, that's it. Like, and that's what a sitcom needs to be in order. I think a sitcom has to be that the standalone episodes are so funny that you're happy to watch them one by one, even if there's not massively, like, they don't all drive on the plot. Like, so many episodes, you know, they're 20, like old sitcoms, long seasons, like only a handful of them drive on the plot, but the characters are so strong and the setup in each episode is so strong. That's why I felt like some episodes they didn't even have a really good setup for the you know, like they were trying to do it, like, but you could just see, you're like, they were weak. And like I definitely, again, the currentness of it, like I feel there was things that they could have done that were more today that we wouldn't have seen before. I don't even know what they are, but you know, there was just things that they could have done that were different, whereas they were going back on old tropes of, oh, we all have to, you know, do our to-do list. Like, one of them was like our to-do list for today. It was one of the only episodes where they all worked together and they all had like different things they had to achieve, or they had to drink the drippings in the bar or whatever. Like, I don't know, like it just didn't totally ring true for me, like all of the things that they had to do or whatever. Yeah, I don't know, but
it's hard to quantify streams and stuff, because obviously streamers are really guarded about their streaming information. But Whip Media said How I Met Your Father was the 26th most watched streaming original television series of 2023, which, I mean, not great. I mean, like, not terrible. I'm not sure.
Not terrible, yeah. It kind of, that feels, probably.
Critically, then you've like Rotten Tomatoes. This is only for the first season. I'm not sure on the second season, but like it gave the first season as a 36% approval rating based on 47 critic reviews. The critical consensus reads, How I Met Your Father takes great pains to update its predecessor's formula for a modern audience, but this stilted retread only amounts to a painful slog. Which kind of brings me to the point that, like, well, it's a point that it's not an original point because people are always making it all the time. Like, should we start leaving the reboots alone? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Even with this talk of this new Office reboot that Donald Gleason's in.
I know.
Which, like, it's at a newspaper company. I'm like, that's kind of interesting, but it also feels like The Office ended 2 weeks ago because of streaming, because of the pandemic.
Yes,
why don't we do something a little bit more original? And I know this technically is like, this would have been a different take because it's a different story.
Yeah.
But as you said, you're falling into like the same tropes. It's the same group of friends. It's not original. We talk about Abbott Elementary and why that's really successful because it's like
unique.
Unique, predominantly an all black cast, set at a school, like
in a different city that we don't see all the time on the TV.
Not based off of a show that's already been made.
Yeah.
So like, is it the reboot thing? Is it just like, right, fucking something else?
Because if you think about, like, who were they thinking they were going to get into this? Like, is it, like, if it was How I Met Your Mother fans, I don't know if it met the mark. If it was Lizzie McGuire, Hilary Duff fans, I don't think it met the mark. You know, it didn't do what it wanted to do. That's why I was trying to think who was their audience. Because as I said, I just got into it because I loved Younger with Hilary Duff before, and that was original. Like, and that's why I liked it. I was like, this is really, it's different. I haven't seen it before.
Look, people would be like, Younger is such a fucking mad concept. It's just your one who's lied about her age, and it's like, how long did she get away with it? But like, it's the same way. That's why Suits was so successful, and that's why every American is watching Suits every second of the fucking day now because it's on streaming over there. there. But the whole thing was like, Mike lied about being a lawyer, but he's a lawyer and he's working as a lawyer. When is he going to find out? Maybe in season 4. You know what I mean? I haven't watched Suits in a while. If that's not correct, whatever. I don't care. Don't correct me.
But also, it feels like it is kind of believable when you watch the likes of like The Dropout with, you know, you're like,
exactly.
I feel like this is believable. And I felt like, apart from Liza Miller's makeup, that was the only bit that I was like, her makeup looks like she's still living in the 80s. But otherwise, mostly, I was like, yeah, I think she could pass for a 30-year-old. I'm on board.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, obviously she has a daughter who's going to blow this whole shit up. But yeah, like just a different premise. Yeah, I think that's probably ultimately, I think the reboot thing is, yeah, and the Office one now coming out. I know it's not a reboot, and I know it's Donald Gleeson, like, so he's... I'm so interested to see
you
him.
should know better. You should know better.
Yeah,
than to
I was going to say,
this.
I would be optimistic about it, but I watched that Alison Frank show. Have you watched that? Oh my God, it might be the worst TV show I've ever watched. And I was so disappointed because I've never seen Donald do anything bad. And I was like, it is terrible.
No, it's...
Honestly, maybe the worst show of it. And I watched the whole thing because I was like, maybe something happens that makes this better. It doesn't. It's actually, even the ending is even worse than the show. The ending makes it even worse. So yeah, I wouldn't waste your time on it. But like, that made me go, okay, that's the last thing he did. So I'm not actually that optimistic about the next thing he does. I think his ability to pick projects maybe have been compromised recently. I don't know.
No one wants to be wrong more than me. And I do think the newspaper setting is interesting.
Yeah.
Does it need to be under the Office banner? I don't know. And I know it's still an office, so then what the fuck do you call it? I don't know. That's why I host podcasts and I don't write TV shows. This has been a pleasure. I'd love you to come back for Younger when I watch it, which I kind of seem like
it's quite long.
Now.
So maybe
how many seasons is it?
It's 9. It ran for 9. It was like every season. It was like, this is it. It's going to be cancelled. Like that's what it was kind of exciting for me. I was like, am I going to get another season?
You were like, yes!
Yeah, and it did. It kept running on this, like, it switched networks, I think, once, and, like, ran on this,
I'll
random.
Find it. Well,
yeah. But it's really good. I can give you, like, the key episodes to watch or whatever if you wanted, just not to have to watch the entire 9
Must be one of the last
seasons.
sitcoms as well that kind of flew under that radar, that was able to get away with the 9 seasons. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I think
it's just unheard of now. Like.
I think it was because of the network that it was on. It was on this, like, really weird network that I've never heard of, TV Land in America, which is, like, apparently its average age is, like, 50-something.
Perfect.
Housewives or, you know, something along those lines. And but it was Darren Star, like, so I was surprised he was happy to just go with it. He was obviously getting enough money. And then I think it was like, he took some of the best bits of that or the things that were working from that. I think he took them into Emily in Paris. Like, there was some parts of it that you just, like, the kind of frivolity of it and the clothes and the fashion and the workplace and the age gap in the workplace stuff and the ambitious #girlboss, which was kind of Hilary Duff's character. Like, he took some of the elements of that really worked. And I really think he brought them into Emily in Paris, and that's why it's a terrible show that has done insanely well, you know, because it just took the things that actually we want right now. We want a bit of frivolity. You want to suspend your disbelief that she can afford a insane Chanel dress on a marketing salary in Paris or whatever. Yeah. So...
crazy bitch. Yeah. Crazy Lily.
I do have one other. The other thing I wanted to talk about though from How I Met Your Father was the amount of Sex and the City cameos in it. Like there's 3 in 2 seasons. So obviously you've got, it's not a cameo, Kim Cattrall being Hilary Duff's character, but Trey comes into it in the first season. Did you see that episode?
Trey comes into it. Because Kyle MacLachlan is, I didn't get this until I Googled it after, because again I haven't watched How I Met Your Mother in a long time. He's the captain. You meet him in season 1 of How I Met Your Mother. If you get it, you get it. I'm not really explaining it because I don't actually think there's anything to explain.
There's nothing to explain. Yeah, it's a total random.
Ted steals something from his house in season 1.
Okay,
so that's why he turns up again. But yes, anytime Kyle MacLachlan's on my screen, I'm like, this is going to be a good day.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh my God, did you see his biceps? I was like, whoa, okay.
He's very fit.
Very fit. I was like, Charlotte would not have divorced those biceps, would she? So he comes into it. It's a very totally random little cameo that is like no way connected to like the main cast or the characters or whatever. It just comes in. It's very weird. And that's, again, if you weren't watching it in a streaming sense, in a binging sense, I think you'd be like, what was that about? And like, what is it? Because they actually do a to be continued at the end of the episode as well, which I'm like, it's a sitcom. Like, is every episode not to be continued? It's very weird. So, but then when Aidan comes in season 2, and it is...
Oh my God! I was looking at that man and I was like, why? Some things, my eyes are like reconfiguring to the light and I can't figure it out.
Yeah. Like, he comes in as... He's brought in as like, he's a chef in this like event that Valentina and Sophie go to. And he's just introduced being a bit of an asshole to Sophie's character when she's like getting food from the bar, right? And like his opening lines, I'm like, I was like, they couldn't be going down the road of these two characters are going to get together. They couldn't, because he's been a dickhead.
It's so insane.
They have no chemistry. They have whatever the opposite of chemistry is. And like he comes out with like, that's yellowtail crudo, dude. I was like, oh my God, does he think that's his second line to Sophie? And I'm like, how on earth does this 60-something-year-old man think he has a shot with this 30-year-old with that being his second line? And yet they go for it. They go for it. They bring these two characters together and they expect us to believe that Hilary Duff would go for Aidan, right? I could suspend my disbelief if he was like, you know, in that Sex and the City, in the episode where he turns around with the baby.
He was literal Aidan,
yeah.
Not
when he turns around with the baby,
yeah.
and like you're like, oh, and his hair is cut and he looks amazing. But there is no way I could believe that Hilary Duff would go for him with those sideburns.
No.
Oh my God, he looks like is he playing Wolverine at the same time? Like I was like, what are they doing? How on earth? Because like they're coming down.
This
like,
is a sideburns
half his face.
Positive podcast, but I will say if you've never seen How I Met Your Father, like we're actually not exaggerating. Like they need to be seen to believe it's ludicrous.
It's insane. And then like I get where they were going with the storyline, which was that they were like, oh, she's now dating a guy who potentially may actually be her father.
Might be her dad. Is it? Well, you'll have to watch to find out.
Yeah, it's... I don't know if it was worth the payoff of that.
Especially because at no point do you ever believe that Sophie is crazy enough to... Valentina would do something like that.
Yeah.
But like, Sophie... No,
I think they needed to lead into, okay, she has daddy issues or something like, lead into she's dating older guys, like a few episodes in, and then maybe we'd believe she'd go for Aidan despite the sideburns, but like they didn't. She was dating like Jesse and like guys her own age, and then she suddenly is like with this asshole with these sideburns, and she's like infatuated with them as well. Like I was like, does she have a Wolverine fetish? I don't know. Like that's the only explanation I had.
Vibes or something, yeah.
Yeah, if she had been at a furry convention and he was like, and that's where she met him and she suddenly had a furry fetish or something. Like that's
an episode they should have done.
Yeah.
Truly, like, we're talking about modern day settings, go to the furry convention.
Exactly.
See how Sophie deals with finding out her man is into fursuits. Perfect. Brilliant. We could have written it ourselves, and maybe we will.
Yeah,
maybe we'll write the reboot.
We need sitcoms. We need sitcoms.
We
in the
do
world.
need sitcoms.
Yeah.
No, you're so correct. It's been such a pleasure. You are coming back for younger. You actually don't have a choice at some point. Where can people find you should they want to find out more?
Socials, Instagram, I'm Louise O'Toole on Insta, so that's where I post most of my stuff. And I'll have upcoming gigs and probably a trip to Edinburgh in August. TBC.
Exciting.
Yeah. So
very exciting.
Follow me on there.
Okay, I'll leave all the links to all of them below. Louise O'Toole, thank you so much for joining me on Flop Culture. Much appreciated.